What's up? Welcome to Stoke Sessions. We're kicking off season three with a banger of an episode. I'm joined today by Brad Hendrickson and ATN Brewer, and we're talking all about risk versus reward in a downed or sketchy market. Hope you enjoy the show. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think from our position, sitting as an agency, it's been interesting to have the opportunity to interact with so many different parties, given the economic turmoil we've kind of been sitting in, both from a brand side, manufacturer side, and retail side. We kind of get all the opinions, insights, and all of that trickled up to us that allows us to have this vantage point that I don't think a lot of people have an opportunity to see. Um, I think some of the big factors that a lot of the brands that we've spoken to, from whether they're our clients or other brands and other councils and conversations, is, in this era kind of marked by this global tariff shift, inflationary pressures. I think consumer confidence is at an all-time low, both from do we know how we're spending our money, what kind of money am I going to need to be able to afford my groceries in 6 months? I think all brands are facing this defining moment. Um, the main thing that I see a lot of is brands retreating, cutting budgets, raising prices, and in some circumstances that is absolutely unavoidable. But they're really bracing for downturns. But there are these bright, shining lights of brands that are seeing what the moment truly means to them, which is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to gain market share, to deepen consumer loyalty, and really invest in building their brands and building momentum while others are pulling back, which is a really interesting opportunity for those that are willing to take that calculated risk.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We just had a comment yesterday where, like, that opportunity to build customer loyalty and kind of take advantage of the downturn it can play out in a few different ways, right? It could be that you're doubling down on marketing efforts and trying to grab attention while people are kind of retracting, like you said. It can also mean that you do what it takes to keep your prices low and to keep the customer happy in that way, where everyone else, in your industry or your category might be raising prices due to everything that's going on, which, like you said, in some cases is unavoidable. But it's interesting. There's a few ways to play this, and obviously, the other interesting take that we get is that we've got operations that are cross seas, right? Like, we see what's going on in the U.S., but then ATN, we've got a really good vantage point from South Africa and from other parts of the world as well. I'm curious to see kind of what your take is, getting to sit in both sides, both in the U.S. and in rest of the world.
Yeah, look, what I always find interesting about this conversation is that the amount of times I've been in a room where the conversation comes up, and yes, at the moment the theme is tariffs, and it's causing international uncertainty, and it's causing brands and companies to look at costs and expenses, because that's the natural reaction, right? It happens globally, but whenever there's a little bit of market uncertainty and there's downturn, consumer spend tightens up a little bit, the same thing happens. There's data, and that's the nice thing, that's the position we're in, is we've got access to so much clear data on what's happened in the big recession in the 1980s, the recession in 2008, 2009, like sort of that period where globally there was, let's call it tough times for the sake of the conversation. I don't want to call it a recession, but there's data that proves that the brands that did not let go of activity were the guys that won. Those were the guys that got back market share. Those were the guys that actually ended up stronger on the other side. And the analogy that I like to use is, I think about it like, think about a buyer's market in property. When markets are down, it's everyone knows it's the best time to invest. It's the best time to go and buy up property, as an example. There's a lot of analogies we can use.
Stock market, right?
Yeah, same with the stock market. And it's no different if you're a CPG brand. It's no different in this time. Yes, I understand it's a recession. I understand you've got budget. I understand, you've got a business to run, and there's cash flow constraints, and there's all sorts of stuff. But the thing that, in my opinion, is completely factual. In other words, it shouldn't be a conversation or a debate. Is it an opportunity? And for that, the data is clear. Down market is an opportunity for brands. It's the best opportunity that you'll probably ever find to take market share. You know, if you just think about it, because what happens is everyone is in the same position. Spend is less for everyone. More opportunities are available. Spend in marketing decreases across the board globally. Like, a lot of brands aren't in the position to say, look, I can actually fund this process. I can fund this period. I can, hammer down and make sure my spend stays the same. What a very select few companies actually do, and those are the guys who win, is they actually say, I'm going to increase spend for this period because they see the opportunity. But the few who can do that, and the few who have the insight and the understanding that that's what works, they do it and they end up winning. All I'm trying to say is that it shouldn't really be a conversation whether what's the right thing to do. The right thing to do is use the opportunity, seize the moment if you're a brand, because downtime is an opportunity. I am, however, mature and realistic enough to know that everyone's not in the position where they can. A lot of companies just don't have the ability to say, look, I'm going to float this for the next 24 months and wait for the turn and then benefit on this growth later on. But to the ones who can, you don't have a choice. Just you need to be very smart about the channels, because that's going to be different. You're going to have to be very, very strategic about how you approach it, because the same tactics don't necessarily work in these types of market conditions. But whether you should double down if you can, to me, that's just a no-brainer, if I can use that overused term.
Yeah, it's so tough. I mean, like, you look at the stock market and you look at the volatility in the stock market, especially over the last couple months, since the tariff conversations have really taken shape, or at least started to take shape. I don't know exactly what shape they're in right now, but you watch the stock market, and we've had some of the highest peaks and valleys, craziest ups and downs that we've seen. I guess what I'm curious of is this time feels different. And when you're trying to run a business and do risk analysis and think about actually doubling down on opportunity, it's pretty tough from a board level or an executive level to say, is this time different, or is it the same as every other time in the past, like the 1980s and 2008s and all of that. I'm curious to get your guys' take on just overall risk analysis. How do you look at this market right now and say, this is a risk I'm willing to take? How do you put parameters on that risk and say, from a healthy level, we can take advantage of the opportunity, but by how much, right? I think there's obviously there's a standout companies like Brad. I know you have a couple of examples of companies that have done this in the past and done this recently, which is really cool to see. But some of those companies are they're playing with just years and years and years worth of cash flow that doesn't, it's not as big of an issue for them, and those are standout companies, right? But for your more everyday mid to large size businesses, how do you mitigate the risk? What's a responsible take on how to go about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think responsibility is a pretty broad term for how to approach something like this. I mean, every business manages their economics and margins in a very specific way. And so let's even just use the statement E made of doubling down. That doesn't mean that you have to increase your budget or double down on your risk. I think what it also means is coming to market with a really cohesive message to your customers. Everybody is sitting at home concerned about what's going on, and a brand's ability to communicate humanely and to actually try and spark some of that emotional connection with the customer is a whole other way of doing it. And so I think some brands, as they dial back but continue to run through the same marketing motions, activities, narrative to their customers, are also missing an opportunity, because you have a time now to create a cohesive message, even if it's at a smaller scale, of how you're standing with customers that are struggling. If you are increasing your prices, the reasons, the rationale, how you're still trying to maintain quality of your product or maintain some type of customer service aspect to it, that without that income, you would be unable to continue providing the same value as a brand. But there's lots of channels that are relatively inexpensive to relay this message. You have your social channels. And I think things like that brands overlook is a message from your CEO. Talk to your customers about what's going on. Let them know that you are seeing it, living it, breathing it. And it's not something that you're just sitting back and hoping gets better. You're actively making your product and the opportunity for a customer to purchase it a lot more accessible. Um, I think you nailed it on the head with the big brands. You know, you look at like what Ford has done by coming out and saying we're offering employee pricing for everybody, and they're in a far different position than a smaller brand. Even a brand that's doing nine figures in the market doesn't have that opportunity to say we're gonna eat a ton of margin for the next period of time in the hopes that we're going to grow because they could be out of business. But what they do is they have an opportunity to let you know how they're working with retailers, how they're continuing to service you as their end user, and do it in a way that feels like they actually have, care and concern for the customer, rather than just moving through things like everything is okay and running campaigns throughout the summer like everything is all rosy, when in reality, sales are going to decline, prices at the retail level have increased. It's an opportunity to talk to the customer, and I think that's really important.
Matt, if I can weigh in on your question there, which is this the same or is it different, right? And I think it's honestly too soon to tell, because at the moment, what's causing the budget strings to be tightened is uncertainty, not fact. At the moment, there's small, there's hints towards, yes, consumer spend is going to slow down. There's doom and gloom around the fact that there might be a recession coming. This is not new. This is stuff that's been happening for years and years. There's always the one side of the argument, which is this is the end of of everything. There's no way that we're going to get through this. We always do get through it. And the thing that, again, back to my original point, the thing that never changes is the brands that seize the opportunity and the companies that seize the opportunity in downtimes are the ones who win long term afterwards. There's thousands and thousands of case studies on that principle. Now, that doesn't mean that now necessarily is the right time during uncertainty, but the strings are still tightening up. Saturation is still less now than what it was 2 or 3 months ago, right? So that does remain true as well. So I do think that it's uncertainty causes. You think about private equity investment isn't happening at the rate that it was happening 6 months ago, just after the election, basically in the US. Those rates have come down quite substantially with this uncertainty that's in the market. If this leads to a full-on recession, which in my opinion is worst case scenario, right? Even that's temporary. It'll be a temporary downturn, and if you're a business that is at all capable of sustaining until you get to that point, then do. Again, on Barrett's point, I want to fully agree that doesn't necessarily mean go and double your marketing budget. I'm not unrealistic. I know most companies don't have the ability to go and do that. Some do, but there's smart ways to go and look at it. Like I think, if I can use the example of Ford and their employee cost, they're just being really, really tactical and smart, because they know that what this does is it shows loyalty to our customer base. Retention is 5 times cheaper than acquiring new customers. So let's play into that cost model a little bit. So there's some reduction in value saves that's happening over there. And what they're doing is they're focusing on, in tough times, that matters the most, that has the ability to contribute the most towards brand loyalty, is customer experience. Right, so that's just another example of smart tactical application of marketing spend. That's kind of what I'm saying is the if I can give any advice to any CEO sitting in the position today, asking himself the question, what do I have to do with my marketing communication spend? Is be very strategic. This is an opportunity more than what it is a threat. And if you're going to be smart about the next few months, you're going to end up stronger at the end of the period. And that needs to be the principal decision. If that's your core, if that's how you apply your logic, if that's going to be how you unpack what you're going to do, work within your means. Don't overextend. It's not necessary. if depending on your industry, I mean, I do believe that there's going to be some industries at the moment who's going to, who can really benefit from what's about to happen, and their opportunity and scale is bigger. They might considering doubling down and actually investing additional capital into the process. But in most instances, just be responsible, but don't miss the opportunity, because don't sit back and wait, because that's what 90% of 95%, if not more, of the world's going to do, is they're going to sit back and wait. And all of those guys are going to lose during the downtime. And they're going to get at the end of the down period, they're going to have to rebuild again. The guys who are saying, look, I'm seizing this opportunity, I'm seeing it as an opportunity, that principled decision has been made. Those guys are going to grind during this period. They're going to be innovative. They're going to look for ways to take market share from their competitors. They're going to look for ways to stay relevant. Ford's example, again, awesome example of how they're connecting that to brand loyalty, showing they care in a really meaningful way, but actually it's quite smart as well from a tactical point of view. Those guys are going to end up stronger at the end of the downturn period, and immediately. They're not going to have to rebuild for 2 or 3 years to get back to where they were. They're going to be stronger the day that it turns, and that's what you want.
Yeah, I think that's the big point, is that, through the other side of this is they don't have to climb a hill now. They're already at the they're already at the peak of it, and they can start using that momentum that they've already built. That's really cool insight. Brad, I know you had a couple other examples that you had pulled up. I think there was maybe another car brand in there. Did you want to walk through any of those?
I think they all share somewhat similar sentiments. And, I look at, and what I kind of did was analyzed, the last 5 or so years. Obviously, when COVID hit, it was a relatively similar feeling, maybe even more dramatic. And the start stop was, something we had not dealt with ever in this type of climate. So I tried to quant it into that specific time frame. But looking at like some of the CPG brands, which I think is, the bread and butter of what we always like to talk about. I looked at a couple large brands like General Mills and Unilever, and what they did in those time frames. And there was a lot of cost absorption on their side. And that was the message that they gave to their customers is, in these downturns, we're here for you. And we want to make sure that you can still afford the products that we know that you need, that we're maintaining the same quality, and a brand that you can trust. But then you have other brands. You look at Olipop, for example, which, is one of those brands a lot of the M&A conversations are very centered around. After COVID, the beverage category skyrocketed. Inflation, cost of materials, supply chain, everything really hit at one time for those companies that need to source things from multiple different areas. And really what they did during that time was, yes, they were impacted a little bit by the price increase, which was across the entire category, but really doubling down on those brand values and what they were bringing to their customers, and reminding them what it means to be an Olipop customer is, the health values, the exclusives that they were providing retailers, and the educational content behind their product continued to reinforce that message at the customer level as to why, when I'm still making decisions as to what to put in my cart, Olipop's reminding me that they are a necessity that I need to be having, rather than just switching to somebody because maybe they're 10 cents cheaper or whatever it is. I think just amplifying E's point when we're talking about private equity and M&A, there's lots of conversations. And right before this tariff thing hit, M&A and CPG was up and coming. There was brands getting acquired by large ventures at a pretty rapid rate. And you look at the revenue and the multiples, and what a lot of the M&A looks like is they're paying for the story and the community. They're paying for the brand and the brand equity, not necessarily the sales velocity or the distribution. In some cases, that is a value add, but they're buying these brands that have, large amounts of customer loyalty and communities on social networks, and those that are diehards around it. And when you're looking at this type of downturn, brands need to continue amplifying that message, because like E said, when you come out of this, you're going to have to dig out of that hole. At a worst case, you can help maintain and continue building that community and sustaining the community. So when you come out of this, you're a step ahead of those that felt like they had to take a dive based on, the setting down the sandbags in case the hurricane hits the shore type of mentality. So I think those types of things are really important to consider. And as E said, when CEOs are looking at what to do, being strategic in that manner of how do I at least maintain my customer affinity levels at the rate that they're at. So when we come out of this inevitably, because we always do, then I can really put the pedal down and continue growing, because those are the values that these private equity firms and those interested in rolling up these companies within CPG are really looking for.
If
Yeah, that's
I've
great
got a
insight. Go ahead, Ian.
Sorry, Matt, you go. No, I'm thinking about something that's not necessarily directly in line with the conversation we're having right now, but it is top of mind for me that yes, the tariffs is causing everyone to have this resistance to. A lot of people are saying, let's just hold back, let's just wait and see what happens. And another very strong argument, in my opinion, is we're living in a time where change is more frequent and faster than what it's ever been before. If you're still worried about the implication of the tariffs, you should be more worried about the implication of the war that it's creating within these companies. If you look at what's happening on TikTok at the moment with all the Chinese factories going and saying, but wait, look at what we're actually creating for you. You're paying for a made in Italy bag, or you're paying for the stuff, but it's actually getting made over here for $5. That loyalty that's broken, what change is that going to be? What change is that going to bring? Think about AI. AI is, I don't know of an industry at the moment that's not directly affected by the use and application of AI. Change in the times we're living in is constant. And I think that shouldn't be, the fact that this uncertainty is causing the problem is probably something that gets a bit under my skin, because it shouldn't be that. It should just be a case of, look, it's yes, uncertainty, but that's not the opportunity. The holding of the purse strings is the opportunity, because you're gonna have a period of time where there's desaturation within the market. Exploit it. Find a way. Find a way to leverage that as a brand, and the ones who do, like in any down market, are going to be the guys that win at the end of the day. I think I've made that same point about 3 times now, so I'll stop making the point. But
No,
It's a
it's
good
it's a
one. I
good
mean,
point.
that's
Yeah, and we're always going from what it seems like is a fear-based buzzword.
yeah,
2008, 2009, recession, then the word COVID, then the word AI,
yeah,
now the word tariff. And there's always
yeah,
something that's an
exactly.
inherent risk to every business in every category. And risk mitigation should be a part of every business's day to day. You're always looking at ways to mitigate risk, whether it's overspend, whether it's price fluctuation or price volatility in the market, or from supply chain. There's always inherent risks to your business. And those that continue to learn from this and prepare a little bit better are the ones that have a really great opportunity. I think a lot of brands that are kind of shunning back a little bit are potentially ones that weren't as prepared, or thought we just came out of the last one, we can't possibly go into something else. And so when you talk about risk mitigation, I think the actual word is preparedness. And how are you actually managing your business on a day-to-day basis to avoid these types of ebbs and flows where, we talk about tariffs today. What's going to be the word we talk about in July and August? What's the next risk that's going to come and disrupt everything? So I think
Yeah,
that's always
it's
an interesting thing to talk about.
and I think
I
social
think
media has sped that up too, right? Like
yeah,
you're so right. The fear, the like the temperature of fear, and the fear, kind of pushing that we see. Anything that we can take advantage of, it seems like, is like, oh, here's another thing for people to be afraid of. And I think
yeah,
at a certain point, you have to just thicken your skin and be weathered enough to say, I'm pushing through no matter what the thing is that hits me next. It was funny yesterday because we're on a call. I think, Brad, you were on the call with me, and we're sitting here talking to one of the clients, and all of a sudden there's an earthquake in California and everything starts rattling. And one of the first things that went through my mind was like, here we go again. Like, here's another thing to make a headline, and like, we just need to smooth things out
just
for a
something
little
to
bit.
add to
But
the chaos. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
But I
But
think,
I want to quick shot, Matt. I want to just highlight again that that's really the crux of it, is that people are treating it as risk mitigation and risk management, where it shouldn't be that. It should be change management, because I don't think it's going away. I think that for the foreseeable future, this is how CEOs need to think about their businesses. Change are going to be frequent, regular, The ups and the downs are going to be amplified. Market shifts are going to happen at faster rates than what we've ever been used to in history. So if your stance is going to be fear-based, risk mitigation-based, you're going to miss the opportunities. You're going to miss the time it takes to execute, and you're just going to miss out on opportunities all the time. You need to take a stance of, this is change management. This is now part of my job. This is part of how things work. Let's have that mind frame. Let's have a positive view on it, not a risk fear-based view on it. And that's how you're actually going to capitalize on the stuff that's happening. Easier said than done. I get it, but
Definitely.
it has to be the stance. It has to be the stance that people take, because that's the guys who are going to win at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Very
agreed.
good. Yeah, the only constant is change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
at a hell of a rate. At one hell of a rate.
Yeah.
That's what we have to get used to. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, prepare for it to get even faster. I just saw a headline yesterday saying that NVIDIA is investing, I think, $500 billion on a new supercomputer manufacturing center here in the US. And I mean, the race to quantum computing and the next step that we take in AI, when that happens, I mean, I always kind of hear the comment that quantum computing is always like 2 years away, right? It's like, oh man, we're within 2 years of hitting it. But I mean, when that becomes a reality, hold on to your shorts, because it's going to get gnarly real quick, and AI is going to be something totally different than what we know of it today. And the pace at which things change is just going to be exponentially crazy to go through. But it's exciting too, right? And like same principle applies. When AI first started making mainstream headlines, it was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, it's going to take my job. And I think, as we've progressed through that over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been like, well, this is going to take some people's jobs, and it's the people that sit back and don't do anything with it that are going to lose out, right? The people that kind of take the reins and say, I'm going to use this to propel myself, my business, my workforce, my team. Those are the people that will win. And I forget who said it, but it's like, AI is not going to take your job, but somebody who knows how to use AI will. And I think that's kind of the same principle that we're talking about with the market shifts and the volatility in the market right now. And I think it's a good point to CEOs: be bold, be strong, and be confident. Take risk when it's time, and seize opportunity every chance you get. Do it in a strategic and tactful manner, and hold on, because we're moving.
Yeah.
It's going to be a roller coaster.
I think it's going to be a roller coaster. Yeah. And be pragmatic, be assertive, be aggressive. And, again, you have to maintain the healthy levels within your business. But, instead of sitting back, like you said, Matt, and waiting for something to happen, jump at the opportunity, and view it as a way for you to get a little bit ahead, and be a pragmatic problem solving CEO, as opposed to one that's, just sitting there kind of waiting for the tides to change.
Yeah, it's the worst 100%. Stance to take is this principle of waiting it out is just the worst stance to take at this time. It is, you have to figure out, know that change is coming, and strategically apply yourself. If I look at our industry, right, we're in marketing, advertising, communication, content creation. What we've been doing day to day for the last decade is changing at a day-to-day rate at the moment. But because we have the mindset that, guys, look, all that's changing is the actual approach is changing. The need, our clients all still need the same things. I need to sell my product. I need to position my brand. I need to build consumer base. I need to gain market share. Those requirements, no matter what happens with AI, no matter what happens in the world, those requirements are still going to be there. So if our mind frame was, oh shit, everything's changing, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? You'll go into a state of panic and fear and wait for things to happen. But because we think about it differently, we think about it like, look, what we do is never going to go away. It's going to stay there. So as long as we're on top of, all right, how does it work today? What are the channels that are effective in the times we are living on? How is things navigating and migrating? As long as you've got that positive viewpoint on it, and again, you see every time something like this happens, if you're an early adopter, you're ahead of the curve, it's an opportunity, right? And because I know in MAG it's culture, so we that's how we believe. That's why we call ourselves a growth companies, because it doesn't matter what the tactic or the channel is. What matters is, are we growing? Are we heading in the right direction? Are we learning what we need to learn fast enough and adopting fast enough? I wish for all of our clients and for everyone who's got a brand and a company out there to apply the same, just the principle. It's all. Just make the principle decision that it's not necessarily bad thing. See it as an opportunity, and then the rest you'll unpack and figure out as you go. Yeah, hope that made some sense at least.
Definitely does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good point.
absolutely.
Positive
And I
about
mean,
it. Yeah.
to go full circle, it is a unique opportunity and vantage point that we sit in, because we get to work with so many different brands, right? We get to see multiple industries, many concentrated in the CPG space, but it's a cool vantage point because we get to take all of the inputs from all these companies and see the growth trajectory that everyone's on and what tactics are working, here versus there, this industry versus that. And then get to apply that for the betterment of all. So yeah, it's cool. I'm excited to see where things go in, the next 30 to 60 days. I'm excited to see where things go in the next 2 years, for sure. And we'll see where this whole quantum computing thing lands us. But I think the message being before we close this out is that for the CEOs, the CMOs, and the people running businesses out there, be bold, take the opportunity, and go with it. And we hope to see everybody grow. Hope to see everybody make good moves over the next few months. There's definitely going to be a lot of risk. But if you can turn your mindset into seeing the opportunity and being comfortable in change, I think you're going to go far and long.
Well said.
Agreed. Yeah. Now is a time. Now is an opportunity. Seize it. Do not take a back seat and wait. To me, that's the message. Don't wait. Don't wait, because no matter, then your best possible outcome is you're going to lose something, either market share or revenue or margin. If you just sit back and wait, there's no good that can come from that. So rather see it as an opportunity and take that approach to it. That would be my summary of it all.
Very cool. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time today. We'll go ahead and close this out, and look forward to seeing everybody in the next episode. Cheers.
Cool.
Thanks
For the
chat,
chat,
guys. Chat soon.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.